What's up, guys? Give me a second while I get this sorted, and we'll start here in a second. Hopefully, everybody in Australia had a good weekend, and hopefully you guys in America are enjoying your Sunday. I want to start with, as you read the title, we're going to go over, it was a busy weekend in boxing, but I want to start with a little story about expectations, and it's something that relates to one of the main talking points today on this live. So there was a time, maybe a couple years ago, I was working at this health club, and I was living with a roommate who was a Muay Thai fighter, and at the health club I was teaching strength and conditioning and boxing. And there's 30 other coaches there, and the way the business model was set up is that we weren't paid by the health club. We had to pay the health club to work there. So it's similar to a tattoo artist or somebody who works in a salon. You pay rent, right? And that could create a really competitive work environment if there's some coaches who are doing really well and have an entrepreneurial hustle to them, and then there's other coaches who maybe just don't have the personality to put themselves out there to gain business. Over time, this creates a lot of shit talk, creates a lot of drama. So I come home one day and I'm venting to my roommate, the Muay Thai fighter, who's older than me, and he's kind of an older brother figure to me, and I was telling him how, man, I'm going to work each day and I'm thinking I'm about to get into a fight. Like, there's these group of dudes that keep talking shit behind my back, and over the last few years I've done a lot for them, helping them with their business and helping mentor them, and they still run their mouth. And it's frustrating me. Like, I shouldn't have to go to work and worry about throwing hands in a physical way. It should be a place of, for sure, not as much stress as that. And my roommate, Jesse, at the time turned to me and gave me the best advice that up until that point and probably currently anyone's ever given me. And he goes, Johnny, you go in there every day, and because you if you treated these people in a certain way, you expect things from them. You expect them to treat you a certain way because your ethics or your moral compass, however that is, you feel that because you treat somebody good, you should get treated good. He goes, don't expect that from people. He goes, remove those expectations. For however many people or whatever you put onto somebody, you project that onto them. Don't do that, because that's only going to let you down. Go in there and just have your business mindset on, get work done, and all the emotional stuff with expectations, remove it, and you'll be free. And it was literally a lesson that you could apply right off the bat. It didn't take long for me to go into work the next day and exercise that advice, and it works. And I want to use that in reference to this coming weekend. We have a young, going to be pro, 17-year-old amateur American, 18-time national champion, Curmel Moton, who's making his debut on the undercard of Jermell Charlo and Canelo Alvarez. And I wanted to talk about expectations. He's taking on a 27-year-old Ezekiel Flores, who's 4-0 and undefeated. And it's well documented the camp that Moton comes from. It's well documented that he's been mentored by Floyd Mayweather. He is signed with the Money Team and Floyd's promotional company. And it's up to us now, the fans, on how we treat this young kid in terms of what we say about him, what we write about him, and what we comment about him, because the expectations are so high for Curmel Moton that it almost is unfair. When you have a kid who's making his debut, it just has me thinking, if he goes out and wins a points decision, what is the media going to say? Do we expect Curmel, that you guys call Mini Tank? He's already been given his nicknames because he does have an uncanny resemblance to Gervonta Davis. He was and is Gervonta's sparring partner. He has mixed it up with Shakur Stevenson in rounds, and he just has all of the upside. His possibilities for a legendary career have been unfairly placed on him at such a young age. So in the boxing community, the expectations of this young kid coming up this weekend are so high. What is a fair outcome for him? Is it just a victory? Is it a points decision? If you understand boxing, you know the way the amateurs versus the professional works, the scoring system is really different. In the amateurs, it's a lot more, I don't want to say point sparring, because it's not. It could be, it's boxing still. It's not like a karate tournament, but you get bonuses and benefits in the amateur side for touching rather than punching. And that we're going to see how that, with a lot of fighters transitioning from amateur to pro, there's a bit of a learning curve. So we're going to get to see Curmel Moton's learning curve. Maybe there won't be. Maybe he goes out and starches Flores and knocks him out. Will it ever be good enough, though, for us, the fans, for the media? Will the critics ever say that he's good enough? Because this happens time and time again in combat sports with young fighters and with fighters who have a lot of hype, who are transitioning from the amateur to the pro career, or who are just making the leap in terms of career trajectory and testing themselves. The expectations placed on these young fighters just seem so high. So I'm just going to put my well wishes out for both Flores and Moton. I hope they have a great fight. And it's just going to be interesting to sit back and see Curmel's career and how he does and how he navigates these waters with so much pressure placed on him for a 17-year-old. So we'll see. Time will tell. Did you guys watch the Zhang Joyce fight? That's another one that Joyce is still, he's not an old guy, but people are already talking about, well, no, Joyce fought Zhang. People were saying that he should retire. 38 years old, got knocked out. Third round, it was pretty brutal. And then the first thing Joyce had to do was make a statement, said he wasn't going to retire. Zhang, there are levels in heavyweights. When you look at the lighter weight classes, due to numbers, there are just more smaller guys in the world than there are bigger guys in the world. So I'm reading some of the comments on the blogs about skill set and talent and technique and all that good stuff. The higher the weight classes go, that stuff needs to be sort of managed a bit more from a critical standpoint. You're going to see less and less and less fast twitch, skilled, super highly technical conditioned athletes the heavier you go. So some of the beef on Zhang was like, he's good knocking out these mid-tier boxers, but the minute you throw him up against an Andy Ruiz, a Deontay Wilder, that sort of caliber, the next level, the highest level, he'll get exposed. But only time will tell. He's looked good every time I've seen him, and those knockouts are brutal. Let's see where he's sitting at. He's 40 as well, and that's another thing about the heavyweights, is that the last thing to go as we get older as athletes is our power. So the first thing they say are reflexes and speed, and that's why you see the smaller fighters, the smaller boxers, retire at an earlier age. Versus a heavyweight, it's much more common to see heavyweights in their 40s because the last thing to leave is that power. And Zhang is living proof to that. Think about all the heavyweights. You don't really see a lot of exceptional, dominant, early 20, mid-20 boxers in the heavyweight division like you do in the lighter weight classes. A lot of these guys, at least now in this era, are late 30s, 40 plus. So it'll be interesting what happens with Zhang, who wants to take that fight. Chinese boxer, dangerous. He has that knockout power. Only time will tell with that as well. Interesting time in the heavyweight division. It seems like, it's being held up. A lot of people, obviously we're speaking about Tyson Fury fighting Ngannou, and that's a whole nother conversation. Francis was on Rogan's podcast and was accusing Fury of some fuckery with his gloves. So I'll do a separate video on that. But the division just seems like at a crossroads. It'll be interesting how things will play out, who will fight who. And, there was a time where the heavyweight division ruled over boxing, and now that's just not the case. The welterweights are kind of showcased as well. And that kind of goes ebbs and flows as well, depending on generations. It's usually the welterweights, middleweights, and then the heavyweights. So I also want to talk about Conor Benn. He fought yesterday. A lot of people were upset that he was able to dodge the UK doping policies. He still didn't prove himself being innocent on paperwork. So he wasn't allowed to fight. He's not allowed to fight in the UK. That's why if you're wondering how the hell did he fight, he flew over the pond. Him and Eddie Hearn got a fight in Florida in the United States. And now Conor Benn, everything that you hear of him since the fight, all systems go. He fought a gritty fighter, Orozco, to a points decision. Conor was out of the ring for over a year, so you would expect to see some ring rust. And he was much smaller than his opponent, and he said afterwards he was impressed with how tough his opponent was. But in typical Conor Benn fashion, he didn't say that that's why the fight went the whole distance. He said the fight went the whole distance because he needed the rounds. There is some truth to that. It's what he said afterwards that's interesting, that a boxer's mindset, you're not going to get into the sport and think that you're going to lose, right? You're going to get into the sport initially and think that you can beat everybody. Conor's 26 years old. He's undefeated. He wins a tough points decision yesterday against Orozco and then calls out and says that he wants the winner of, you ready for this? Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford. I'm not laughing at the fact that I think that Conor would get washed. I'm laughing that it's just boxing's such a sport to where you can win one fight and throw your name in a hat. And with this day and age of social media, buzz, clicks, trending, fad, stuff like that, it might happen. Who knows? I saw a few. Conor Benn looked a little. He didn't look the same like he did last fight. Granted, it was a year, and I'm just gonna leave it there. I'm just gonna mention that he called out the winner of Bud and Errol, and I want to ask you guys, what do you think how that would play out? I just did a video on the channel with that. You know what? Let's see if we can play it and not get flagged. With what he said, so just bear with me for a second, and I'll play it for you. He was talking to Fight Hype, and he was talking about how he'll come over the pond and handle his business against Crawford or Errol. And it just had me thinking as well, it's like, confidence is everything in the sport, but humility does go a long way with the fan base. Okay, here we go.
Me, but I'll happily, fight the winner of them. Or you got these other fighters coming through the, top 5. Any of them, any day of the week. All the top world weights are over there. I'll happily go to the States and do the job. So if I've got to go over there and capture the world titles, I'll happily do so. If you haven't already,
I'll leave it at that.
Please subscribe.
You can check out that whole video.
And enjoy the show.
It's on the channel. But you see it just in that 15-second clip, the confidence that Conor Benn brings to the table, the belief that he has. And with that, though, because he's failed these drug tests, this is why people hate him, because those two don't blend. You can't be confident and brash, but at the same time be juggling anti-doping case, because then it shows the lack of humility, arrogance. Even if you are deep down in your spirit know that you're clean, you would think you would have the empathy enough to understand that of the fan base of boxing. So that does make me question a little bit of his IQ in terms of like being able to read a room and his emotional intelligence, because that's where the beef is coming from. It's not, the kid's an exciting fighter. He's had his moments. Shout out to the Letitia. She sent me to one of his fights in 2017 where he was only, I think he was 20 years old. He won the fight, but he got dropped, and you saw a really young kid who was kind of floundering, but he figured out how to win a controversial decision. And then you see as he's gotten older, he's turned into this sort of knockout artist. But with that, there comes an emotional responsibility with the fan base. That's if you want to be respected and if you care about your legacy. Time will tell. He is 26 years old. Boxing is a sport that's told us time and time again, all it really takes is one great performance and one great memorable moment on the microphone for all to be forgotten. So, like I said, time will tell. We talked about Zhang and Joyce. What's next for Joyce? 38 years old. I wouldn't blame him if he wanted to hang him up. He said he wouldn't. Ben calling out Crawford. That's a lot to talk about. I'm sure we're going to hear more about that in the upcoming weeks, because we still have to get it in writing in stone that this 147 fight's happening with him and EJ. I'm doing another video on where's Bomac at? Can we get a Bomac sighting? I know his court date's coming up first week of October. He's stuck in a UK prison cell, which is crazy. And then Curmel Moton this week. Letitia, no, Johnny, my point is pointing out the fight, in my opinion, after the fight is, yeah. I understood that. I didn't want to say that too specifically, because that's still, it is speculative that, but you can use it as a gauge because you look at the performance of that fight that you pointed me towards versus all the fights after. So it does kind of seem like the proof is in the pudding. I'm just trying to be a neutralist here, a centrist. But this weekend, Charlo Canelo, the undercard, man, there's a lot of stacked fights, and we'll highlight. Yeah, he has failed 2 tests. See? Cheers to you, Letitia. And I want to talk more about the Curmel Moton debut against Ezekiel Flores. Flores is a 27-year-old 4-0 fighter. We'll see what's up. And guys, stay tuned. I got a client downstairs in about 15 minutes. So I appreciate the support. I'd love for you to like this video and stay tuned, guys. I appreciate you.